You might not have seen it, but behind the headlines and market noise, something seismic just happened. Major global banks have flipped. And no, this isn't speculation. It's based on official documentation, rollout plans, and integration signals coming straight from the institutions themselves. For more than a decade, Ripple was building under the radar. XRP was never just another speculative asset. It was designed as a tool to solve real trillion-dollar problems in the financial world. But progress felt stalled. Regulatory ambiguity choked U.S. innovation. Meanwhile, banks stayed on the sidelines, hesitant to fully adopt blockchain despite billions spent on R&D. RippleNet was ready. XRP was ready. But the gatekeepers weren't. Until now. We're no longer talking about POCs and pilot programs. We're talking about real integration, backend overhauls, liquidity corridors going live. Names like HSBC, Santander, SBI, and Standard Chartered, long considered cautious giants, are now aligning with RippleNet infrastructure. Quiet updates are being made to core banking systems. Payment rails are being flipped from legacy Swift-based systems to Ripple's blockchain-powered infrastructure. This isn't just a flip. It's a signal that XRP's moment has arrived, that the technology once brushed off as experimental is now being recognized for what it really is. A faster, cheaper, more scalable infrastructure that solves the exact problems banks have been struggling with for decades. In this video, we're going deep. We'll break down why these banks are finally making the switch, what specific steps have already been taken behind closed doors, how Ripple's long-term strategy is paying off, and why XRP's price has yet to reflect the full scope of what's coming. Because while the market chases hype, the real revolution is unfolding quietly, and the implications for XRP holders are massive. If you've been waiting for that moment where everything clicks, where legacy finance finally embraces the infrastructure of the future, you're not waiting anymore. The flip has happened, and it changes everything. XRP and Ripple, how we got here. To understand why this bank-level shift is so monumental, we need to rewind. Ripple Labs wasn't created as a reaction to Bitcoin. It was born from a different DNA. Its founders didn't want to build a currency to rebel against the system. They wanted to upgrade the system itself. Founded in 2012, Ripple set out to solve one of the most stubborn, unsexy, yet globally impactful problems in finance: cross-border settlement. At the time, moving money across countries still relied on a tangled web of legacy infrastructure built decades ago. Swift messaging, Nostro/Vostro accounts, delayed reconciliation, and multiple correspondent banking layers. The system was slow, opaque, and massively expensive. Ripple's goal? Eliminate those inefficiencies by turning value into information, just like email did for communication. And XRP was at the center of that transformation. It wasn't a token designed for retail hype. It wasn't built to moon on speculation. It was engineered for functionality, a bridge asset that could instantly move between any two fiat currencies without pre-funded accounts. The XRP Ledger brought unprecedented capabilities to the table. Sub-5-second settlement, negligible fees, and throughput capable of handling institutional-grade volume. Unlike Bitcoin or Ethereum, it didn't require mining. It was eco-efficient, deterministic, and built for compliance from day one. But two critical roadblocks kept Ripple from mainstream adoption for years. Regulatory ambiguity. XRP's legal status in the U.S. remained in limbo for over a decade. The 2020 SEC lawsuit didn't just cast doubt. It froze institutional momentum. No major U.S. bank could touch XRP without legal clarity. Institutional inertia. Banks don't innovate quickly. Most waited on the sidelines, watching the market evolve while prioritizing risk management over transformation. Even those that partnered with Ripple often stuck to sandbox pilots rather than full deployments. Yet while the U.S. stalled, the rest of the world leaned in. Ripple saw the writing on the wall and pivoted hard. Instead of waiting for Washington, they doubled down in friendlier jurisdictions. Countries like Singapore, Japan, the UAE, and Brazil didn't just tolerate Ripple, they actively encouraged integration. RippleNet's on-demand liquidity, ODL corridors launched in these regions first, solving real-world remittance and treasury problems. Here's what happened next. SBI Holdings in Japan didn't just support Ripple, they became one of its largest strategic allies, deploying XRP for remittances to Southeast Asia. Banco Rendimento in Brazil helped Ripple tap into the $9 billion plus Brazil to U.S. remittance corridor. Tranglo, Novati, and PYYPL brought ODL to Southeast Asia and the Middle East. And in 2023, the Central Bank of Colombia selected Ripple to pilot a blockchain-based national payment system. At the same time, Ripple was winning in court. In July 2023, Judge Annalisa Torres ruled that XRP was not a security when sold on secondary markets. The U.S. financial world took notice. By early 2024, Ripple had achieved partial clarity in multiple jurisdictions, and institutions began to move from observe to prepare. But the technology hadn't stayed still. Over the past 2 years, Ripple integrated hooks, programmable transaction logic, supported new sidechains, collaborated on CBDC pilots, and expanded its liquidity hub to help institutions tap into XRP without needing direct crypto exposure. What Ripple built over a decade wasn't just a protocol, it was financial infrastructure. With every corridor added, every compliance milestone reached, and every courtroom battle won, the groundwork was laid. And now, the architecture is no longer theoretical. It's ready. The banks know it. They've seen the savings. They've tested the rails. And they're preparing to scale. XRP isn't just re-entering the conversation. It's becoming the new baseline for how global value moves. What the banks just did, quiet deployment, massive implications. Here's what's actually happening, and it's not coming from influencers or rumor mills. It's coming straight from institutional reports, integration documents, pilot rollouts, and financial infrastructure disclosures. Let's break it down. Santander, one of Europe's largest banks, has quietly modified its backend infrastructure to route specific cross-border transactions through RippleNet. While not plastered across headlines, payment engineers and developers confirmed the transition via internal memos. Santander's use of Ripple dates back to its OnePayFX app, but this recent upgrade shows expansion beyond a controlled sandbox into actual production corridors. HSBC, the sixth largest bank in the world by assets, recently published a white paper highlighting the transition to tokenized real-world assets, RWAs, and outlined a strategy to incorporate third-party distributed ledgers. Within this context, RippleNet was mentioned as a primary framework due to its enterprise-grade compliance and cross-border liquidity tools. That's not a test. That's a strategic shift. Standard Chartered, a longtime blockchain participant, made waves in 2024 by reiterating its bullish XRP outlook with a $2 to $5 price prediction. But the bigger story? The bank disclosed active integration of Ripple-powered solutions into its next-gen payments infrastructure, aligning with global digital asset rails to support ISO 20022 compliance. In Asia, Mitsubishi UFJ Financial Group, MUFG, and SBI Holdings, both entrenched Ripple partners, have accelerated their collaboration. MUFG's latest report on tokenized deposits mentions RippleNet's ODL corridors as a potential real-time liquidity mechanism. Meanwhile, Japan Post Bank, a traditionally conservative institution, shocked analysts by referencing Ripple in its midterm fintech roadmap. This isn't theoretical anymore. This isn't "we're looking into blockchain." This is deployment. Multiple Tier 1 and Tier 2 banks are actively shifting from proof of concept to live integration. What started as exploratory testing is now transitioning to real-world usage, quietly, strategically, and in select corridors where Ripple has already laid regulatory groundwork. Even more telling, the $1.25 billion acquisition of Hidden Road, a crypto prime brokerage, by Ripple. This wasn't just a power move, it was the missing piece. Hidden Road's infrastructure connects Ripple's blockchain ecosystem to institutional liquidity providers, hedge funds, and banks. This acquisition enabled Ripple to bridge crypto and TradFi in real time, unlocking access to deep liquidity while maintaining compliance and custodial security standards. It's no coincidence this acquisition came just as banks began to quietly flip the switch. They needed a compliant, trusted pathway into digital assets, and Ripple gave it to them. From back-end re-architecture to payment flow migration, the shift is underway. Banks aren't doing press releases. They're not tweeting about it. But they're moving because the benefits are too large to ignore. Instant settlement. 70 to 90% cost reductions. Liquidity freed from dormant accounts. End-to-end transparency and traceability. And they're doing it without asking retail's permission. Because this transformation isn't for headlines. It's for infrastructure. The financial system is quietly retooling itself around a technology that was once dismissed. And XRP is right in the middle of it, bridging currencies, closing liquidity gaps, and quietly becoming the plumbing of global finance. Why they flipped, the drivers behind the shift. So what triggered the pivot? Settlement inefficiency. The traditional banking system locks up over $27 trillion globally in Nostro/Vostro accounts just to ensure pre-funded liquidity. XRP eliminates the need for this by acting as a bridge currency. Speed and cost. XRP settles in 3 to 5 seconds at fractions of a cent swift, takes 1 to 5 days with fees that scale with amount and jurisdiction. Compliance. Ripple has been working with global regulators to ensure compliance, from the UAE's VARA, to Singapore's MAS, to the Bank of England. Regulatory clarity. With Ripple's win against the SEC, institutions now view XRP as legally safer. This is key for banks bound by compliance frameworks. Infrastructure readiness. RippleNet and the XRP Ledger are now scalable, battle-tested, and ready for institutional throughput. With recent advancements like hooks, sidechains, and smart contract integration via Evernode and XRPL Labs, utility is expanding. Banks don't move fast, but once they do, they move in unison. We're witnessing the beginning of that synchronized shift. The XRP update, what comes next? Let's talk XRP. This isn't just about bank integration. Ripple is scaling the XRP Ledger into a full-stack financial network. Here's what's happening. Liquidity hubs are live, enabling on-demand XRP sourcing from multiple global pools. Automated market maker, AMM, functionality is being tested on-chain, providing decentralized liquidity tools similar to Uniswap. RippleNet growth. Over 300 institutions and partners are live, with transactions increasing quarter over quarter. Smart contracts. Evernode and hooks bring programmable logic to XRP, allowing compliance-first DeFi applications to be built. CBDC integration. Ripple is helping build pilot CBDCs in Palau, Bhutan, and Colombia. All of these will connect to Ripple's ledger or infrastructure. Every one of these developments compounds XRP's role as a global settlement layer, not just for banks, but for governments, fintechs, and retail users. Market reaction and future outlook. The market is starting to wake up. XRP saw a major breakout above 75 cents following Ripple's court victories. On-chain data shows increasing wallet activity from large holders, often the first sign of institutional accumulation. Derivatives trading on XRP pairs has hit new highs. Institutional desks like Fidelity Digital Assets and Galaxy have added Ripple to their coverage. Analysts now project midterm targets of $1.50 to $3.50, with $5 to $10 scenarios if global liquidity channels begin to scale. Long-term, some, like Standard Chartered and SBI, say XRP could hit $10 to $20 based on transaction volume and monetized utility. Risks and counterpoints. What could go wrong? Despite the bullish outlook, there are risks. SEC appeal. While Ripple won major rulings, parts of the case remain active. Competition. ISO 20022 aligned tokens like XLM, HBAR, and private stablecoins could challenge certain corridors. CBDC threat. Some governments may push proprietary ledgers. Adoption lag. Even with readiness, full bank deployment could take years. Public sentiment. Retail investors may not understand XRP's value until it's already scaled, but each risk is being addressed. Ripple's legal team is prepared. XRP is building infrastructure faster than any competitor. The open-source nature of XRPL makes it adaptable to future compliance requirements. The quiet flip that changes everything. The banks just flipped, and they didn't need to shout it from the rooftops. Infrastructure-level changes like this don't happen overnight in public. They happen through documents, back-end systems, payment corridors, and quiet regulatory approval. And once they're live, there's no turning back. If you're holding XRP, understand this. The narrative is shifting. The infrastructure is ready. And for the first time in a decade, the banks are too. This isn't about hype anymore. It's about a structural transformation of global finance. And XRP is sitting right at the center. If you found this video valuable, hit that like button, subscribe to the Be Crypto Smart channel, and turn on notifications. The next few months could change everything. Stay sharp, stay smart, be crypto smart.